Let me tell you about the most memorable New Year's Eve I've ever had. No, it didn't involve fireworks, a midnight kiss, or champagne-induced confessions. Instead, it came wrapped in an envelope, a tidy little package of betrayal and irony, hand-delivered by the woman who once promised to love me forever. Emphasis on once. We were at this upscale rooftop bar she picked. The kind with those pretentious minimalist cocktails that cost $20 but leave you thirstier than before. Everyone was dressed like they'd raided a Bond movie set. She wore this fire engine red dress she bought with my Amex points, and I had on a suit I didn't even want to wear, sipping a drink I didn't want to order, next to a woman I didn't recognize anymore. At 11:57 p.m., she pulled out an envelope. "I got you something special," she said with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. Now, I've seen that grin before. It's the same one she wore when she claimed her girls' trip to Miami had 0 men involved. Turns out, 0 men except the yoga instructor, the bartender, and her colleague, Trevor, who just so happened to show up at the same time. So I took the envelope, already suspecting it wasn't exactly a Groupon for couples massages. Inside, divorce papers, drafted, signed, neatly packaged like a breakup boutique order. And as the clock struck midnight, with all the finesse of a soap opera villain, she raised her glass and announced, "To new men this year," like she was ringing in the clearance sale on husbands. What she didn't know, bless her heart, is that I had already filed. Yep, beat her to it. Mine was dated 2 weeks earlier, notarized, and already on file with the courthouse. I'd even taken care to route the proceedings through a judge who, incidentally, wasn't her biggest fan, but that's another story. She thought she was flipping the script. Problem was, I wrote the damn play. By the time she'd high-fived her girlfriends and posed for a boomerang video, I was texting my lawyer, sipping scotch, and humming Sinatra. I'd already transferred my shares, rerouted the mortgage, and sold the condo in her name to pay off her credit cards. The ones she used to finance her wellness retreat with Trevor. That beach house. The one she used to refer to as our future escape. Mine now. Fully paid. Oceanfront. Fireplace included. That's where I ended up spending the rest of the night, with the sound of waves in the background, a dog at my feet, and peace I hadn't felt in 5 years. She, on the other hand, spent hers calling the credit card company to find out why it suddenly stopped working, before waking up to her bank account looking like a sitcom punchline. Debt and shock. 2 things she never thought she'd be on a first-name basis with. So yeah, New Year's was a reset. Just not the one she was expecting. Now, before you go crowning me the king of petty vengeance, let me make one thing clear. I didn't do it to get back at her. I did it to get ahead of her. Because somewhere between her girls' nights turning into overnights and her Bluetooth mysteriously always disconnecting when I walked into a room, I figured out I was living with a woman who thought subtlety was a personality trait. It wasn't just the lipstick stains on her wine glasses that weren't hers, or the way she started wearing perfume again after a 4-year hiatus. It was the silence. That loaded, smug kind of silence you get from someone who thinks they're outsmarting you. She had become slick, not smart. There's a difference. A smart person plays chess. A slick person plays poker with their cards facing the wrong way. It started small. Strange passwords on shared devices. Client dinners that didn't show up on her work calendar. And then there was the perfume receipt I found stuffed into a grocery bag. For Marcus. I don't know who Marcus is, but I know he likes Tom Ford and apparently dates married women with a fondness for playing victim. That was the night I made the call. I'd kept a lawyer on retainer since the time she tried to buy a Range Rover without telling me. Not for emergencies, just for the day I decided I'd had enough of pretending. And buddy, that day had come. I told my attorney 2 things. I want a clean break, and I want her shocked. That's when the real fun began. Over the next 6 weeks, while she was out buying lingerie I'd never see and posting vague quotes about deserving happiness, I was quietly prepping my life to operate without her. Assets were shuffled. Debts reassigned. The shared checking account? Quietly redirected to a solo one with my name and no forwarding address. I was methodical. Ruthless, even. But never cruel. I wasn't out to destroy her. I just didn't feel like subsidizing her midlife crisis anymore. The real masterpiece? That beach house. We'd bought it together, on paper, at least. But I knew she never bothered to update the title after I refinanced it under my name. Legal loopholes, baby. All perfectly above board. all hers to overlook while she was too busy liking Marcus's gym selfies. So by the time she handed me that envelope on New Year's Eve, thinking she was springing the trap, the floor had already disappeared under her. The look on her face the next morning, when she realized the court had already stamped my petition and served her via process server while she slept off her hangover, was poetry. Not the romantic kind, more like the tragic Greek kind. Maybe Euripides, if Euripides had a flair for designer heels and bad decisions. She tried calling. I let it go to voicemail. She tried crying. I let it rain. Then she tried threatening to go public with a story about how cold and unfeeling I was. Cute. The only people still listening to her at that point were her yoga instructor and the collection agency. Me? I made coffee, walked out onto the balcony, watched the waves do what they do best, wash things away. That was the moment I knew I'd won. Not just the divorce, but the peace. And I hadn't even started dating again yet.so about 3 days after New Year's, when the dust settled and her Instagram went suspiciously quiet. I got an email. Subject line, "Can we talk?" Now, if you've ever been married to someone who thinks apologies are implied by emojis and passive-aggressive subtweets, you know how rare it is for her to ask to talk. She never asked for anything. She suggested. She insinuated. She hinted. But asking? That meant something had gone terribly wrong in her Barbie dream house of manipulation. Out of pure curiosity, I said sure. I didn't expect much. Honestly, I half expected her to show up with a misunderstood wife, monologue ripped straight from a soap opera. You know the kind. I was lonely. You were distant. Marcus understood me. Spoiler alert, it was worse. We met at a neutral cafe. Neutral meaning she didn't frequent it, and I had no memories there. I got there early. I always do. Something about growing up in a house where my dad said, 5 minutes early is on time, sticks with you. She walked in wearing sunglasses, indoors, like a true villain in hiding. Sat down across from me without a word. Then she did something I hadn't seen her do since before we were married. She looked nervous. She started with small talk. How have you been? Like we weren't smack in the middle of an emotional demolition derby. I just raised an eyebrow and said, "Get to the part where you tell me why you're really here." She sighed like I was inconveniencing her, then leaned in with a whisper like we were in some spy movie. It wasn't just Marcus. My coffee cup hit the table a little harder than necessary. I mean, Marcus was ongoing. But there was also Anthony. And Chris. And, for a little while, the guy who did our bathroom renovation. That one stung. I'd tipped that guy. She kept going. I stopped listening. Not because it hurt. I'd done my hurting already. But because I realized she was listing names like a CVS receipt. Long, unnecessary, and full of stuff I didn't ask for. Finally, I cut her off. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked down, stirring her coffee with the spoon of shame. "I thought maybe you'd understand." That's when it clicked. She didn't come to confess. She came to absolve. To unload the weight of her guilt onto the one guy who'd carried her through rent payments, job layoffs, and 6 different hairstyles that all looked the same. I gave her the politest smile I could manage and said, "You know what's funny? You thought I didn't know. All this time, you were stacking secrets like Jenga blocks, just waiting for the tower to fall. Meanwhile, I was over here building an exit." Her mouth opened, but I didn't give her the chance. I'm not mad. Not anymore. Honestly, I'm grateful. Because if you hadn't handed me that envelope thinking you were ending me, I might have stayed longer than I should have. And let's be real. You would have kept Marcus in the guest room and called it growth. She didn't cry. That would have been too human. But she flinched. That was enough. I stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked out without looking back. Back in my car, I turned on the radio. Sinatra again. The man knew how to time a line. "That's life," he sang. "You're riding high in April, shot down in May." Only difference was, I wasn't shot down. I was walking away. Clean. Clear. Free. And she? Well, she still had to call Marcus for a ride home. You ever look back at your life and realize the red flags weren't just waving? They were lighting up like Vegas at midnight? Yeah, hindsight's got a wicked sense of humor. I used to think we were the perfect couple. I mean, I did everything by the book. Flowers on anniversaries, foot rubs on Tuesdays, listened to her coworkers' drama like I was getting paid for it. Meanwhile, she was living a double life so poorly written it would have been cut from a bad Netflix series. Here's the thing about chronic liars. They're lazy. The first lie takes effort. The second? Less so. By the 10th, they're practically daring you to call them out. Like when she said she was at yoga, but came home smelling like cologne I didn't wear and had glitter in places only strippers and 2005 pop stars should sparkle. I asked, new yoga routine? She said, essential oils. Right. And I suppose Marcus was her chakra coach? Then there was the business trip that left me dog-sitting for 5 days. She sent one photo the entire time, her in front of a conference banner. A reverse image search took all of 30 seconds. That banner? From a seminar in Chicago. She was in Miami. With Marcus. Again. But I kept quiet. Not because I was blind, but because I was building. You learn a lot about a person when you stop reacting and start observing. While she was out there living her Sex and the City fantasy, I was organizing documents, talking to lawyers, and converting our joint savings account into a detailed spreadsheet of what used to be ours and what was definitely mine. Funny how quiet life gets when you stop arguing. She thought the silence meant I was checked out. Nah, I was checked in to reality. You don't have to win every argument when you know how the story ends. Want to hear the wildest part? She had the nerve to suggest counseling. I remember that day. She stood there in her Lululemon war paint, sipping a green smoothie that smelled like regret and arugula. We should work on us, she said. Us. Lady, I was working on me, and you were working on anyone with a gym membership and a pulse. I told her sure, let's go to therapy. What I didn't mention was that by the time we'd sit on that couch, she'd be halfway through her first legal deposition. When you catch a liar, they always shift gears. Blame. Deflect. Project. And when that doesn't work, they try nostalgia. She pulled out our wedding album once, like it was garlic to ward off the truth. Remember this day? She asked, pointing to a photo of us cutting the cake. Yeah, I said. I remember thinking that was the happiest I'd ever be. She smiled, until I added, and I was right, because every day after that, you chipped away at it. She closed the album. No more lies. No more fake promises. No more her. I didn't just leave her. I left the version of myself that tolerated being lied to. And let me tell you, the view's a lot better from the beach house than it ever was from the couch waiting up at 2 a.m. Let me take you back to the house she thought she'd retire in. The beach house. Our dream escape. Funny how dreams work. Sometimes they're just red flags with throw pillows. See, she used to call it our sanctuary. She picked the tile. I picked the land. She picked the overpriced modern art. I picked the hidden clause in the deed that made me sole owner after the refi. She never read it. Of course not. She was too busy posting filtered sunsets and pretending they came with inner peace. So when the divorce filings hit and she finally registered the name on the deed wasn't hers anymore, I got a phone call. No greeting. No pleasantries. Just 5 words. You kept the beach house? I didn't answer right away. I wanted the silence to simmer. Then I said, no, I didn't keep it. I earned it. You just lost access. Click. 2 days later, I pulled up to the house, parked my car, stepped out with a fresh bag of groceries, a bottle of bourbon, and the kind of grin that only comes from knowing karma drives a stick shift and you just let the clutch out. The ocean breeze was perfect. No fake laughs. No passive-aggressive Spotify playlists. Just peace and the sound of waves that didn't gaslight me every weekend. The inside still had her touch. Cushions arranged in that color-coded psychosis she called style. I started slowly changing it. New couch. Less white noise machine. More vinyl records. Less scented candles. More salt and air. Then came the knock. She was standing there. Oversized sunglasses, some I'm thriving yoga outfit, and that tight-lipped smile that said I'm here to reclaim what's mine, even if what was hers was now very much not. I just wanted to see it one more time, she said, casually brushing her hair like this was a rom-com. Just memories, you know? I leaned on the doorframe. Sure. Take a look. She stepped inside slowly. Took a breath like she expected it to smell like nostalgia, not reality. Still smells like me, she said with a faint laugh. Nope, I said. Smells like new beginnings and wood polish. She blinked, probably realizing that her perfume wasn't lingering in this place anymore, just like her relevance. I guess this is really over, she murmured, half sad, half hoping I'd crack. You guessed wrong back in December when you handed me those divorce papers and toasted to new men. What you didn't know is I was already toasting to my own freedom. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing me not as the man she left, but the man who walked away before she even knew it. Are you seeing anyone? She asked. I smiled. Yeah. Myself. Turns out, I'm great company. She left after that. Quietly. No tantrums. No scenes. Just the sound of her heels clicking on tile that didn't echo quite the same anymore. I closed the door and poured a drink. Not to celebrate revenge, but to toast to peace. And somewhere out there, I imagine she's still telling people how she almost kept the beach house. But almost only counts in horseshoes and cautionary tales. About a week after the beach house showdown, I get a call from a number I don't recognize. I let it ring. Then it rings again. I let it ring again. Third time, I pick up. Because if someone's that persistent, they're either trying to sell you solar panels or confess something damning. Hey man, it's Marcus. Just like that. Like we're old college buddies instead of the guy who warmed my wife's side of the bed while I was at work building her dream life. I said nothing. Silence is underrated. I didn't know she was married, all right, he said. She told me you were separated. Classic. The cheater's starter pack. Lies, bad cologne, and zero accountability. She also told me you were emotionally abusive, he added, as if that was going to smooth things over. Let me guess, I said, and that the beach house was hers? Silence. I could practically hear the wheels turning in that protein shake of a brain. Turns out, the poor sap was planning on moving in with her. Full-on plan. Leave his apartment, pack his gym gear, and settle into the house she never legally owned. I told him the truth. About the deed. About the divorce. About the fact that, legally, I didn't know her or her parade of backup dancers a thing. You're lying, he mumbled. I'm a lot of things, Marcus. But I don't lie. That's her department. He hung up. I poured myself a drink. That night, I slept like a man who knew he wouldn't be hearing from Marcus again. Fast forward another month. I'm at a cafe, same spot where she once confessed her Hall of Fame cheating record. Guess who walks in? Her. Not with sunglasses this time. With fury. Makeup perfect. Hair curled. But eyes? Cracked. You embarrassed me, she hissed, sliding into the chair across from me. No, you did that to yourself, I said, calm as glass. She launched into a monologue about how I made her look like the villain, as if I edited her Instagram captions or slept with a rotating cast of Gym Brothers. All she had left were empty friend circles and even emptier DMs. Then came the kicker. I want another chance. I took a slow sip of my coffee and said, why? Because Marcus bailed? Or because you thought I'd stay broken long enough to crawl back? Tears welled. Real ones, maybe. Hard to say. But tears from her had stopped working on me the moment I realized she was using them like currency. Always when she wanted something. I'm not the same woman, she whispered. That's true, I nodded. The one I married never thought I was disposable. And that was the last time I saw her. Freedom isn't loud. It doesn't walk in wearing confetti and neon signs. It shows up quietly, like waking up and not wondering where she is, like throwing out the trash without realizing you just did it metaphorically. I started cooking again. Actual meals, not the microwave diplomacy we used to share. I started running. Hell, I even adopted a dog from the shelter. Named him Truth, because that little guy never lied to me once. People started noticing. You look lighter, they'd say. Yeah, turns out, losing 140 pounds of dead emotional weight will do that to a guy. 6 months post-divorce, I get a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from her. Pages of apologies. Real ones, maybe. Regrets. Admissions. Something about therapy. Something about childhood trauma. Something about how she didn't know why she hurt the people who loved her most. I read every word. Once. Then I folded it up, stuck it in the back of a drawer, and went on with my day. Closure isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about understanding and choosing peace anyway. 1 year to the day after she toasted to new men, I was at the beach house, same balcony, same drink. Only this time, I wasn't alone. Her name's Naomi. She doesn't lie. She doesn't play games. She drinks bourbon neat and has a laugh that makes you forget winter exists. We weren't rushing anything. No big promises. Just peace, presence, and a shared playlist that didn't need decoding. She looked at me and asked, "What made you finally leave?" I smiled. I didn't leave. I just stopped staying where I wasn't welcome. We clinked glasses, watched the waves, and let the past stay where it belonged, behind us. Because in the end, I didn't lose a wife. I regained myself.